Hello, this is Robbie Mitchell here from Head in the Cloud Development. Today I'm going to show you how to use NetSuite's SuiteScript 2.1 API the Head in the Cloud way. We'll be coding in TypeScript using the build tools that Head in the Cloud has created to make writing and uploading SuiteScripts faster, easier, and more reliable. The goals of this video are to get you set up with a coding environment that'll automatically upload TypeScript code to NetSuite using token-based authentication, to enable you to have SuiteScript 2.0 API IntelliSense as you type, to demonstrate how to upload and implement a script in NetSuite, to walk through a real-life example of a SuiteLit written in SuiteScript 2.1, and finally, to show you how to debug your SuiteLit using NetSuite's brand new server-side Chrome debugger. This video is intended for NetSuite developers and administrators. You should have the administrator role in NetSuite to do everything I cover here. You should be at least familiar with JavaScript and basic web technologies here, and I assume that you've at least looked at the SuiteScript API before. Now before we get started, let me first show you what kind of script we'll be creating. So I'm logged into my NetSuite demo account here, and I'll show you an example of the end product of what this video will be creating. What we're going to create is this custom sales order approval SuiteLit that enables users to set additional field values while they approve sales orders. And of course, this is just one example. You can use what you learn in this video to create any type of SuiteLit with a sublist for any type of record updates in NetSuite. So let's get started. First, I'll mention that obviously this video is showing the setup as done in Windows 10. If you're on a Mac, I have done quite a few other videos in the last couple of years on setting up this NetSuite script uploader with both WebStorm and VS Code on Mac, so check them out. And we're going to do this tutorial a little bit differently. I'm doing this from scratch, meaning that I'm starting with a totally fresh Windows 10 installation here, and none of the tools are currently installed. So if you're new to doing this process in Windows like I am, hopefully seeing the whole setup process will help. If not, feel free to fast forward to the actual coding. So now let's download and install a couple of key pieces of software. First, the IDE we'll be using is WebStorm by JetBrains. To find it, I'm just going to Google download WebStorm. And click on the first link. I'm going to download it for Windows. Now WebStorm is not free, but it does come with a 30-day free trial. And if you do like it but don't want to pay for a license, one way you can get around that is to use one of the beta versions, because they don't require licenses. Before I install WebStorm, the next thing we need to get is Node.js. We can get that from nodejs.org. Now you can get version 14 or version 15. I'm going to go ahead and get version 15. So I'll go ahead and install these. There's really nothing to the installation. You should just be able to do next all the way through the installations. Okay, Node is finished. Now let's go ahead and install WebStorm. Almost done. Now I'll go ahead and click Run WebStorm. So again, I'm just going to select Evaluate for free. Okay, let's pause here and go back into NetSuite. There's one more thing we need to set up there. What we need to do is install our hitc uploader bundle. So go to Customization, Suite Bundler, and click Search and Install Bundles. And just type in Head in the Cloud, and the upload restlet should be the first one that comes up. So go ahead and install this. And now if you don't have token-based authentication enabled in your account, we need to go ahead and enable that now. To find out, you can go to Setup, Users and Roles, and see if you have this Access Tokens option here. If you do, it's already turned on, but if you don't, then you need to go to Company, Enable Features, and on the Suite Cloud tab, enable the token-based authentication option. Okay, so when the bundle is done installing, we need to add the hitc uploader role to our employee record. So I'm going to edit my employee record now. I'm going to go to my Access tab, and if you don't already have it, this is where you need to add the hitc uploader role, and then save your employee record. Then you should be able to create your token. So go to Setup, Users and Roles, Access Tokens, New. Set the application name to hitc uploader, the user is you, and the role is hitc uploader. Now for the name, if you ever work on different computers, you'll need to create a token for each of them. So I like to put in the token name which device this token is used for. I'm on my Windows 10 virtual machine, so I'll enter that here. Then click Save. Now don't touch anything. These codes only display once, so leave this screen as it is and we'll come back to it in a couple of minutes. Now let's go to WebStorm. So we're going to click New Project, and we have to create a folder for our work. So I'm going to create a folder called SSV2 Video SuiteScripts. Click Create. Now I'm going to copy and paste in a few setup files to save us some time. And I'll post a link in the comments to this video so that you can download these setup files as well. So the first file we'll start with is gulpfile.js. Gulp is a tool that automates uploading groups of files. So go ahead and copy these lines of code. Also here I'll mention that you may need to install Gulp globally if you haven't already. WebStorm has a terminal built in right here. So you can install Gulp with the command npm install -g gulp. If you get a message like this saying that npm is not a recognized command, it's because you just installed Node and you haven't restarted your computer yet. An easy way to get around this is if you click on the Start button, you should see a Node.js command prompt, and you can use that instead. You can enter npm install -g gulp. Okay, the second file we'll look at is package.json. Here we just need to add a few things into dev dependencies. Now I'm actually going to restart WebStorm real quick to see if that fixes my problem with terminal. Okay, yeah, it did. So now Node is a recognized command, and I get this little install dependencies pop up from WebStorm. That's what I was looking for. Now I can click run npm install. So this file tells it how to load our 3 head in the cloud modules that we use to validate our code against the API and to upload it to NetSuite. Go ahead and pause the video here and set up this file on your side. Once you have it, make sure to run the npm install command. And when that finishes, you should see that it automatically adds a package lock.json file. So now the next file that we need to add is tsconfig.json. So this file controls how TypeScript files are handled. Again, I recommend you pause the video here and fill this in on your computer. Next file we'll set up is our .hitc upload file. And WebStorm wants to know what kind of file this is. It's a JSON file. So this is the file that tells the uploader which NetSuite accounts pertain to this project, which accounts we'll be uploading to, in other words. So for example, here you might have one for your production account, as well as an entry for your sandbox and release preview. Each object specifies an account name reference, the account ID, and a file cabinet path to upload to. So here I just need to copy and paste my account ID from my URL into this file. Now we need to set up our .hitc upload token file. Again, this is a JSON file. This file will be an array of tokens. And you'll want to have a token set up for each account listed in your .hitc upload file. So here, each object has a company ID, a token ID, and a token secret. So we can take the company ID from our other file here, and then this is where we enter the token that we just created. Okay, finally, let's set up a keyboard shortcut that we'll use when it's time to upload code. For this, we'll go to File, Settings, go to Tools, External Tools, and click the plus button. And make this window a bit bigger. So I'm going to name this tool Build and Upload Just This File. I'm going to put it in a group called NetSuite. The program is gulp.cmd. The arguments is build and upload --file file path relative to project root $. There's also a $sign here before this. And the working directory is $content root $. Click OK and click Apply. And now let's go to the key map and expand External Tools, NetSuite, and double-click on your command. And I usually set it to something like Control-Alt-Shift-B for build. So I'm going to do that here. Control-Alt-Shift-B. That'll work. Click OK. Okay, now we need to create a folder in our directory called SSV2. And this is where our scripts will go. So let's start a new TypeScript here. And we'll call it Approve Sales Orders Suitelet. So at the top of every SuiteScript 2 file, we need to have a block comment with some metadata in it. The first thing I like to put in here is the file name. Next I put in the @nscript name tag. And here I put what I'm going to set as the title of the actual script record in NetSuite. This tag isn't required anymore, but I do find it helpful to know which script in NetSuite this file corresponds to. So I'm going to name this script SSV2 demo approve orders suitelet. Next is the @nscript type tag. This is a required tag. For this example, it's suitelet. Next is the @napi version, which we'll set to 2.1. So under the header comment, the next section is where we import any external modules that we're going to use in this script. There's one here that we'll pretty much always add, and that is the entry points from our nTypes module. You'll see why we need this here in a second. So now we can start our function for our script entry point. If you're not familiar with what I mean by a script entry point, check out the script entry points section in NetSuite help. For SuiteScript, the script entry point is the onRequest function, so we'll declare it like this. Now this is where our entry points object comes in. Almost every script entry point in SSV2 comes with a context object that gives you access to the current record, execution mode, and things like that. So we can add that in here, and we'll use the entry points object to specify that this is a SuiteScript onRequest function context. Now just to see what this allows you to do, simply type in context dot, and you'll see what's made available to you here in SuiteScript context. To see even more, add on request dot, and then you'll be able to see all the methods that SuiteScript 2 gives us for the request of a SuiteScript. Let's not get too sidetracked though, we have a job to do here. So I like to start simple in new scripts and do things iteratively. So first, let's just create a plain UI form with just a title. To do that, we'll need the server widget module. So we'll go ahead and import that. And now we can create a form like this. And to have the SuiteScript show us this form, we can use the response.writePage method. So now this code is ready to run. You can use the keyboard shortcut we set up earlier to upload it. This is what it should look like. So what I had to just do here is I had to change the company ID in my token files and my upload file to be all caps, because apparently it is case sensitive. So if you copied it in lowercase like I did, go ahead and change it to be all caps. But with that, the file uploaded successfully. Now I'll just point out something here. WebStorm is warning us because it says this onRequest function is unused. If you want to get rid of warnings like that, you can go to your settings, and go to your editor, and go to inspections. And if there's a warning or an error that you don't like, just type it in this little search box. Unused globals, for example. And I don't want WebStorm to warn me about that, so I'm going to unclick this and click OK. There we go. Now I have a green check mark. And if it's warning you about a misspelled word, you can right-click on it, show context actions, and save it to your dictionary. There we go. That's what I like to see. So anyway, let's go create this script in NetSuite now. So we can go to Customizations, Scripting, Scripts, New. I'm going to put in my script file name here and click Create Script Record. And copy and paste in my script name from the file here. I'll set the ID to _approve_orders_SL, abbreviating SuiteScript. Go ahead and save this. Now we can deploy it. And I'm going to leave it in testing mode, set the audience to all roles, and save this. Now we can use this URL to navigate to it. So here it is. Here's our blank form. So nothing is broken yet. Great start. So what we have is working so far. Now let's start setting it up to show a list of sales orders that are awaiting approval. First, to keep my code nice and tidy, I'm going to move the creation of the UI form into its own function. We'll call it render form. And now I can call this function here in response.writePage. Okay, now let's create a sublist. We'll set the ID to order, the type to list, and the label to approve orders. Make this a bit wider. Now let's start by just adding a few columns to keep things simple. I'm going to add an approved checkbox column, a date column, and a sales order column. Next, we'll want to populate the sublist with the sales orders that are pending approval. To do this, we need to use the SuiteScript 2 search module, so let's import that in. Now let's do a search on sales orders that are pending approval, which is status code A. And of course, we'll set a mainline filter to true. For our columns, let's just start by getting the tran date column. Now I'm going to do this search in a way that only loads up to 1,000 results. For me, this is fine, because if we try to show more than 1,000 lines in our sublist, the browser is going to really struggle. So if you have more than 1,000 orders awaiting approval, then I'd recommend using some additional filters here. Now we'll iterate over the results using the index as our sublist line parameter. We'll get the transaction date and we'll set it in our sublist like this. Now notice that WebStorm flags this as a problem. It's mad because it knows that setting the sublist value requires a string, but it doesn't know what type of variable our tran date value is. Now I know from experience that dates come through search columns as strings, so I'm just going to add as string onto this line to let WebStorm know that this should be treated as a string. Great, that solves the problem. So here we'll go ahead and set the internal ID column as well using the result ID. Now let's go ahead and upload this file and see how it's looking. While it's uploading is a good time to get rid of typos. Okay, the upload is finished, so let's refresh our page here. And here's our updated Suitelet. Now we see some orders and their dates. This is a great start, but there's one problem. Look at the sales order column. Right now the column is editable. I don't want that. I don't want users changing the sales order on the line. So let's get back into our code. We'll fix this and we'll add in some more columns now. So first, let's disable this sales order column so nobody goes in and changes it. To do that, we call the updateDisplayType method on the column object here. I set it as disabled, that way it'll appear as grayed out. Now let's add in some more columns. I'm going to add in columns for customer, PO number, ship date, and ship method. And for the customer column, it's a select column as well, so I'm going to disable this one as well. Now let's add in the corresponding search columns so we can populate these values as well. I'm going to go ahead and specify as string on most of these. And then we'll set the values in the sublist as well. Okay, let's upload this and take a look at what we have. Okay, let's refresh our page here. Uh-oh, great, now we have an error. Now this is one you might see very often when creating sublists. It's telling me that sublist.setSublistValue is missing a required argument, the value attribute. And if we check what line of code it's happening on, we can do that by going to our SuiteScript, and in the error it says it's happening on line 45. So if you edit the JavaScript file here, it'll tell us what line 45 is. Line 45 is where we're setting the PO number. So this is happening because there's some sales order that doesn't have a PO number, and that's a problem. So the fix for this is simply to add an or null onto any of the values that could possibly be empty here. So I'm totally sure that every order will have a date, a customer, and an amount, but I'm not so sure about these bottom three values. So I'm going to add or null onto these three lines. Now let's upload this and take another look. Okay. Okay, great. That fixed it. This looks much better. Now just one more problem. The PO number and ship date columns should be editable, and I'm missing my ship method column. Did I forget to add that? Let's take a look. I did. First we'll add the ship method column. So to make PO number and ship date editable, we need to again use update display type and set them to entry. And while we're here, let's add a submit button to our form for approving. Now let's upload this and take another look. Okay, this is perfect. Now our UI is complete. Now I want to approve some orders. I'm going to go ahead and fill in a line to test here, but I know that this button doesn't actually do anything yet. So let's go back to our code and implement the submit functionality here. So now, when the blue submit button is clicked in a SuiteScript, that always triggers what's called a post request. This basically means that data is being submitted into the system. So here in our main entry point, we're going to handle that event. The idea is that here is where we'll do the actual approving of the sales orders. And we'll leave our writePage method right here at the bottom. This way, after our post is done, we'll end up right back on our SuiteScript UI form again. So I'm going to start by adding a post if block. So now, how do we approve our sales orders? We need to start by iterating over our sublist lines, like this. Now first we'll want to look at the value of the selected column. If it's t, then we'll proceed. So first let's extract all our column values into variables here so we can work with them. Okay, now let's set the actual values that we're going to submit to the sales order record. The way we approve the order is by setting the order status to B. Oh, thank you, spell checker. And then we'll use the record.submitFields method to update the order. So I'll need to import the record module. And I'm going to also tell it to ignore mandatory fields here as well. Now I know that approving orders often fails for one reason or another, so let's put this in a try-catch block. That way if one order fails, it'll keep going with the rest of them. And we should add in some execution logging as well, so I'm going to import the log module. So when you update an order, it's a good idea to log that. We'll include all the values here. Otherwise, if it fails, we'll log that as an error. I'm going to include the same details there. So let's upload this and try it out. Okay, so now I should be able to click submit and it should actually go through. Let's try it out. So my order failed to approve, and if I check the logs, I see that, but wouldn't it be great if the error was displayed here as well? Let's add that. I don't need to see the ship method, I'll just overwrite that here. We can show the error by including e.message in our log here. I'll upload that. I'm actually just going to try approving a different order. I think this one might be ancient demo dummy data without any lines or something. Let's see if Steve Davis drops off our list. Nope, this one failed too. Let's see why. Yeah, see, these are really old sales orders and they don't have any lines on them apparently. Let's try this one from 2014. Maybe it'll be better. B# music. Yeah, that one worked. Let's check our logs. Yep. But wouldn't it be nice if we had some sort of feedback here about the approval results? Let's see if we can add in a banner message at the top of the page that'll tell us how many orders were approved. So NetSuite does give us a way to add a banner message to our form. What this means is that we'll want to set up our message based on how many orders were approved. So let's add a simple counter variable to keep track of how many were successful. And here we'll increment that. And now we'll initialize an empty confirmation message here to be passed into our form creation function. And now at the bottom of our post section, we'll set the message based on how many orders were approved. We can also have it include any error information as well. We'll add in a line break in case there are multiple orders being approved and failing. So to add in a banner, we need to use the NUI message module. So I'll import that here. And now in my render form function, we'll say to add a page init message if a confirmation message was passed in. We'll do that at the bottom. And if I wanted to make it even smarter, I could tell it that if the confirmation message contained the word error, to use the error type instead, so it would be a red banner. But this is good enough for now. Let's check it out. So let's try proving a couple of orders now. One I think will fail, and one I think will go through. So great. So they both actually failed. One of them doesn't have any lines, and the other one tried to use the FedEx integration, which failed. That makes sense. Let's try proving a few more. Great, it works. And if I want to approve a couple more, something is still going wrong with these orders. Well, great, I guess we'll have to debug it now. So one of the cool new things NetSuite has added in is a server-side script debugger that actually uses Chrome browser tools. Let's check it out. I'll switch into debugger mode now by going to Customization, Scripting, Script Debugger. Now this new Chrome debugger only works in SuiteScript version 2.1. So I'll change the API version here. Now first, let's go back to our Suitelet and get it ready to submit. Now in the debugger, let's click Debug Existing and select our script. So I'll mention here that you need to have your pop-up blocker turned off for this site, otherwise you might get a warning about that. So I'll go ahead and submit my Suitelet now. Yeah, see, I didn't have my pop-up blocker just came up. So I'm going to say always allow pop-ups, done. I might have to stop this one, so I'm going to cancel the debugger here. I'm going to rerun it and resubmit my Suitelet. And now when I do that, a new tab pops open. It seems to take a minute to load, but when it does, you should see some familiar looking Chrome debugging tools here. So if I go to the Sources tab, now I can step through my Suitelet. Perhaps I'll set a breakpoint on my for loop, continue to that. Now I can step through the code here. The first line is selected. So here's where we're going to try and update this order, which is what I expect to fail. And when we do, we land in this error section. So this can be a very helpful process for debugging. Thank you, NetSuite, for giving this to us. And when you're done, you can just close that tab. And that's all for now. I hope you've enjoyed this intro to SuiteScript 2.1 in TypeScript. Feel free to get in touch with us if you have any questions. You can contact us at www.headintheclouddev.com or email us at gurus@headintheclouddev.com. We'll see you at SuiteWorld. Bye for now.